So good news I have from today actually. I passed some of my tests. And also I'm learning Arabic.
A bilingual queen.
Today, I went to the aquarium on a trip,
You didn't invite us.
and I think a weeks ago, we went on a trip to NJ Pack, and we watched a movie called Just Mercy or Have Mercy with Michael B. Jordan.
Okay. That was a good one.
Hi, good day, everybody. God bless everybody. My good news is with the Second Chance Committee of National Action Network, we went to Albany last Tuesday to really encourage some of these legislators who have not yet supported this pending law or a law we want to have really effective, but it's pending more endorsements, but it's called Clean Slate. And the reason it's so necessary is that there are people who have done their time fully for years and have had no further criminal charges. And when they put that check or whatever they do to acknowledge that they have a criminal record, they are not hired for jobs. So this is a very important law. We were fortunate enough to meet some legislators who did support it. So they're going to now speak to other legislators who may not know about it, but they will know about it because we were up there. And it looks favorable, but we can never guarantee anything. We have to stay on it, stay focused, stay involved to ensure that the law does get passed because we need that law. Thank you.
Hello again, hello family. So I want to share some news that I was very excited to be a part of and be in the building. So on January 18th, there was a world premiere of two wonderful sisters who told their story, and their first interview was their dad. And I'm so very proud to be in the house to watch them. And that's none other, of course, the Sharpton sisters. Shout out to Dominique and Ashley. Y'all can do better than that. Shout out to Dominique and Ashley for their new world premiere, Sharpton Sisters. And if you missed it, you can always go back on Fox Soul and watch them every Wednesday at 9 p.m. So make sure you tune in. Tell somebody to tell somebody. Shout out to Dominique and Ashley.
How you doing? All right, I am Lorenzo Vaughn, president of the Land Performing Activist Troupe. And my good news is that I will be talent coordinating and hosting the Black History extravaganza that we will be having here on February 4th. So make it a date to be here and see your face in the place. You're gonna be wearing your Sunday best, wear a nice little derby hat, and we'll wrap after that.
Hello. So I have two pieces of good news. So first, this past Tuesday, anybody, well, y'all should all know Felipe Dosa, Usman Diallo. Most of y'all know who they are? Right. So that's our National Youth and College Director and Field Director. And Ahmed Kiel, he's in Nan Morehouse. He also was a former Huddler. He graduated from Huddle. He's like alum. But the three of them went, and JT Trollinger, four of them went and represented National Action Network, youth and young adults, at the White House this past Tuesday. And a special meeting with Vice President Kamala Harris, where she talked to young men of color from ages 18 to 34, I believe. And they talked about renewable energy, mental health, education, all sorts of things that impact young men of color. So that was the first meeting of many, and they definitely have a whole report about it. We're meeting tomorrow about it, and they have a lot that they had to say about it. But I just wanted to big them up and salute them for representing well, of course, in all that they do. And the second piece of good news is, of course, Huddle is not the same without my mom on that line sitting over there. She had surgery around Christmas, and she's been basically bedridden since then. But thank you for all your prayers and support. She's doing better. She's getting stronger every day. She is not able to travel and be here yet, And she is killing her that she cannot be at the National Action Network every Saturday and every Monday, but continue to pray for her. She loves y'all. Hit her up, hit her phone, and she's getting stronger every day. So thank y'all for those who have reached out.
Okay, so yes, last Monday was a fantastic day. And I do want to say that Yusef Salam walked with us. He stayed here the whole day, and he walked with us over to the statue. And he expressed, his words and his thoughts about Dr. Martin Luther King and how that had impacted on his life since he is one of the members of the Exonerated Five. I also want to share that I sit on the Manhattan Borough Assembly Committee for the participatory budget to find out where the monies are going to go. So we are in there making great decisions as a team, and it is a lot of work. It is very informative, but what I am learning is that not only about, well, I already know this about the racial imbalance of where the money is going and how, but it is good to see that people are on the same page and they see the racial social injustice, knowing that monies are in their community and it should be shifted towards other communities that are well deserving of that. And so it's broken down into various categories. I have the health and wellness, and it has within there at least 23 different subtopics, which is it is the largest category actually. And so I feel very honored to sit there and that I was chosen to sit in that arena with the most subcommittees within a category. But we have a great team, and I'm going to be leaving some handouts next week so people could just put down what their thoughts might be towards some of those questions, because even though I'm part of a district and representing a whole borough, it's more informative to talk to people and take back what they're saying as well, not just what I'm thinking and what the people who were chosen are thinking. So I just wanted to share that and say, and then just to remind everybody about, Lorenzo spoke about it, the Black History Month. So if you want to participate, please sign up, see me, email, leave a note at the front. Most people have the email, the flyers in the back, and I'll put one back there. And thanks. Bye-bye.
All righty. Two things. One, I had gotten in December a second case of COVID. But I am clear now. Yay. Gone. To me, that's like really good news because I wouldn't be at my house otherwise. And the second thing is tomorrow is my daughter's birthday. She turns 41. I was there when she came out of her mother. I saw her show up, and I just love her so much. She's so smart, man. She's one of the few people that I be thinking, I think you might be smarter than me. That's kind of hard to do. But anyhow, those are my good news. Thank you.
At the age of 10, I got saved in the church, and one of the first Bible stories I learned was that of Moses. Moses, as a young man, grows up and is is Jewish, but he's actually brought up Egyptian. And in the story, there comes a time in his life where he has to choose if he was Egyptian or if he was a Jew. And the Bible tells this story that he saw a Jewish slave being beat, and he decides to rise up. And he uses violence, which then causes for him to have to run away out of Egypt. And the Bible says that it took 40 years after that God had to train him through being a shepherd and being a father to then become a deliverer. And in the huddle, we're trained up to do this type of work, to do deliverance. God sent him back not to use violence, but to use nonviolence and to use the gifts that he gave him to tell the Pharaoh, let my people go. When we read the Bible, we realize that Pharaoh is very resilient to letting his slave population of Jews go, for whatever reason that is. But we know that God does a miracle and the people of Israel are released. Amen. Last Tuesday, 2 Tuesdays ago, I went to Englewood, New Jersey on behalf of the Placid family to speak to the council as they were asking us to get as much support as they can. And as I began to tell the council to let this cop go, it seemed as if the council's heart hardened the more we said, do the right thing. And this Tuesday, which is tomorrow, they're having another city council, and the family is begging for whoever can go and to support them behind telling the Pharaoh of this age, which is in Englewood, New Jersey, the council, and many other municipalities, to do the right thing by this son, by not promoting this cop, but letting him go. And I just wanted to share that news.
Okay, thank you for everybody that spoke. Now I would like to get into the informative, important stuff. So, did you know segments? I am up first. So, my Did You Know is about 5 Memphis police officers fired after investigation into Tyre Nichols' traffic stop death. Keep in mind, all of these 5 police officers are Black males. 5 Memphis police officers have been fired following an investigation into the death of Tyre Nichols after a January 7th traffic stop, our content partner, Region 8 News reported. The 29-year-old father of one was pulled over for alleged reckless driving, police saying he fled from the car after a confrontation with officers. He died on January 10th. Federal investigators began closely investigating the case on Thursday. The Memphis Police Department said in a statement that after a thorough review of the circumstances surrounding this incident, we have determined that the 5 MPD officers violated multiple department policies, including excessive use of force, duty to intervene, and duty to render aid. Nichols' family, attorney Benjamin Crump and attorney Antonio Romanensi, released a following statement in response to the firing of the 5 officers on Friday night. We join Tyre's family in supporting the department's decision to terminate the 5 officers who brutalized him, ultimately causing his death. This is the first step towards achieving justice for Tyre and his family. They must also be held accountable for robbing this man of his life and his son of a father. In the coming days, we will review the video footage from this violent attack, providing the family and community more clarity into what led to the loss of this young man, father, and son. We will continue to demand transparency and accountability in this case, and will not stop until we achieve full justice for Tyre and his family. Nichols' family will view the body cam footage for the first time on Monday, according to Crump. Former Shelby County Mayor Mark Luttrell commended the MPD on its investigation and termination of the officers. These are serious incidents, and our police department has a burdening responsibility to look thoroughly at these things and to also reassure the public that we are on the right path of getting this resolved, he said. Sorry, guys. They've taken the right step, and you've got to bear in mind, if the city indicated that in any kind of way by tolerating this and not taking a major step, the city itself could be exposed under the Civil Rights Act, Civil Rights Attorney Walter Bailey said. This is a great first step in making sure that there is justice for Tyre Nichols, said Tennessee Senator Ramesh Akbari. Police brutality is unacceptable no matter who is the victim and no matter who the officers are. And so I'm happy that they acted decisively and quickly, and I hope that they sent a strong message that police brutality is unacceptable, Akbari said. Akbari put out the following statement Friday night. It is no secret Memphis police officers have a difficult job to do, but there is no excuse for police brutality against our citizens. I am thankful Mayor Strickland and Chief Davis took a decisive action. Right now, we should support anyone who is doing the work to make sure justice prevails. The only way forward, keeping our citizens safe, is to work together to build relationships and support reform that stops police brutality. Folks, we have to work to do the bridge divides and heal the wounds in our community. It's the hard work that must be done. I am praying for Tyree Nichols and his family, as well as our community, in hopes that this does not happen again. Due to the ongoing criminal investigation, the Memphis Police Association will not comment on the termination of the officers in Tyree Nichols' case, said Essica Cage Rosario, president of the Memphis Police Association. The citizens of Memphis, and more importantly, the family of Mr. Nichols, deserve to know the complete account of the events leading up to his death and what may have contributed to it. So, that is my Did You Know? I have a question for you. Anybody can come up, young ones first. So my question is there a double standard between black police officers and white police officers? Because as we know, these 5 men were black. But they're so quick to fire these black police officers for misconduct, but when it comes to the white police officers, they give them paid leave and allow them to resign. So again, my question is there a double standard between black police officers and white police officers?
There totally is, because say if I'm a white police officer and I just senselessly and emotionlessly killed a person, like any type of person. It doesn't matter, black, white, Chinese, Asian, just kill them. My chief would be able to either fire me or just me quitting before he could fire me. And then I get paid to leave. And then with the black police officers, say if I'm a black police officer, I just get fired. I won't be able to quit before he fires me or anything, cause I'm just left broke without my leaving check, and these white police officers are getting money anyway because they killed some person senselessly. Sometimes for no reason, sometimes because of resistance. You could have just arrested that person. You don't have to kill them. Now, I could see if they had a gun or something to hurt that other police officer, then maybe you could go into action. But if they're literally not resisting, just arrest them. They commit to their crime, and it could be over with. You don't have to get fired or anything. And yeah.
Yes, because if you're paying white people to just quit, you fire them and they get paid to get fired, that doesn't make any sense. With black people, they don't get paid, they just get out, they just get fired. That doesn't make any sense.
Oh, okay. Everybody done?
Yes, it appears to be a double standard. But the thought I have now, I'm sure, this is Memphis, Tennessee? I'm sure there's been other allegations of excessive use of force by other people in Memphis, Tennessee. Okay, this is a prime example that they're entitled to the same justice. So every allegation of excessive use of force that has not been attended to in the past should be reopened and evaluated. And regardless of the color of the officer, they should also be fired too if it is found that they use excessive use of force. And this is a prime case that will legitimize the request for their case to be opened and evaluated again. Thank you.
So before she comes up, I would like to welcome our 2 new huddlers to huddle. I don't know their names yet, so before you speak, say your name.
My name is Naima Rasco. And I believe there is like a double thing, a double standard because when the George Floyd case happened, I can't exactly remember if there was like 4 or 5 other police officers there when the specific police officer killed George Floyd. They could have stopped him from proceeding to kill him, and they are bystanders for that, and they are part of the crime for not stopping him. They weren't immediately like fired or something. It took a while for them to actually have to go to court for the situation, and I'm not justifying the fact that the black people killed them, but like I think that everybody should be treated justice.
I'm impressed.
Yeah, so there's definitely an imbalance when it comes to officers of color. So first of all, they're shamed. They're already considered guilty before a trial. They're imprisoned. They are criticized and ridiculed and called everything under the sun less than human. Their families are exploited, and they in turn lose sometimes their employment too. And then they become targets of more violence. And if they have children, it's even worse because we know that children in schools, that they can be mean and they can be cruel. And so that brings trauma. Now, officers that are not of color and they are white, sometimes they don't even get suspended. They're still on the force. They're still getting a check. And when the media covers that story, they are covering them as if they are heroes and celebrities. And sometimes they don't get any jail time whatsoever. And they go on with their happy little life, and they still commit other crimes. And it's a door opening for the continuation of what I consider to be a movement of the Klan. Because when we are not holding everyone accountable, and it goes back to the Constitution, with people of color not being treated equally as human beings. And until we get an amendment to the Constitution that changes that, where all men, and it should say African American people, are 100% human beings. And that needs to be added there and needs to be really enforced.
No justice, no peace. I'm Kenneth Simmons Sr., and I neglected earlier to introduce my 2 granddaughters, Diamond Roscoe and Heaven Lynn Simmons. I want to welcome y'all here tonight. This isn't my first visit. I was here last week, and I've been here, and I love being here. And that's why I brought my granddaughters with me, and some other people that I'm going to be bringing with me too on Monday night. I certainly, you know what comes to mind? Our honorable mayor, Eric Adams. I remember the days when he was a member of 100 Blacks in law enforcement who care, and their whole objective and their whole message was that the African American, Latino, and Caucasian officers weren't viewed the same way. And if this one of the things I realize in life, when something happens, if we don't know all the circumstances, it's hard to kind of like really, whatever, put our spin on it. So I would like to know, and that's another good reason for me why NAN is so important to me in my life, because a lot of the things that are discussed here about what's going on in our lives, you don't hear about it other places. And it's so I'm happy to be here to be able to have those moments and get the information. We had a wonderful time last week, Monday, and I was here and we walked over to the statue. I didn't even know that statue was there. I was ashamed of myself. All this time in New York and didn't know that statue was there. So we had a wonderful time over there. I took some footage and we'll make sure we get it. So, all right, we can keep that with the record. And thank you very much.
Welcome to Huddle. That's all I have to say. So, for our next Did You Know segment, I would like to call up Reverend Ron. Can I hear an applause for Reverend Ron?
Thank you, Giselle. The Did You Know comes from an article titled, 2 Ohio police officers are under investigation after a video showing one punching a woman in the face outside of McDonald's. CNN. 2 Ohio police officers are under investigation after a video surfaced on social media of an officer punching a black woman several times in the face outside of McDonald's. Officers were dispatched Monday to a fast food restaurant in Butler's Township for a report of a disorderly subject who was upset over a food order. The video shows Sergeant Todd Stanley and Officer Tim Zeller detaining Latinka Hancock in McDonald's parking lot and Stanley striking Hancock in the face and head. Hancock spent the night in the hospital suffering from bruised lips. Her teeth were loose and back injuries, her lawyer said. The case comes as police use force, particularly against people of color around the nation. Hancock had been cooperative when police arrived, then later become highly agitated and refused to identify herself when police asked her for her information. Police body camera footage of the incidents was released this Wednesday. At first, Hancock can be seen calmly explaining to the officers what happened, and then the situation escalated as she refused. One of the officers were telling her, calm down, warning her, you can see jail time if you refuse to cooperate. After she refused to identify herself, the officers begin to arrest Hancock, and there's a little bit of a struggle. Stanley, the officer, punches Hancock in her face and head. Police body cam footage shows this. Stanley's punched by Hancock with Zellers pointed a gun at her at the same time. Hancock was charged with resisting arrest and failure to identify, according to the police. The situation escalated from there as employees refused to make the sandwich, was told by the McDonald's, right? And the store returned Hancock's money, and the police were called to remove Hancock. McDonald's, the lawyer says, should be ashamed of resorting to calling the police over a disagreement over an order. So my question for you tonight is, what is the plan of action against this reoccurring issue of police violence against black women and women of color?
What I think should be done is maybe we should get like communities and like people from the communities, people from that specific community that she lives in, and see what happens. Because if you're punching a lady that wants her money back from a McDonald's order in the face, then that is really wrong. Because first, you never got to ask her to explain what happened. Then you proceed to punch her in the face while arresting her and point a gun at her. Now that is crazy, because you're supposed to explain why you're there, and then get evidence from either customers, employees, or the manager. And if you're putting your hands on somebody, proceeding to punch them in the face, then that will give you a lawsuit, fired, and just a whole lawsuit. And then you'll waste your free time on court and paperwork and a lot of money from being sued. And also, you could face consequences like being fired and being suspended.
Thank you. So the question is, what is the plan of action against this recurring issue of police violence against black women and women of color?
Did I hear this wrong, or did that police officer just punch her for no reason at the starting of this? Did I hear it wrong? Because that's what I heard. Well, why are you punching someone for no reason? That should be the question. That should be the question. And over an order, if she wants her money back, that's fine. But if you're punching her over it, that's just wrong.
Hi. So I'm only gonna say this once this year because I try to not repeat myself. But the question has to do with what do you do with recurrent violence from the police, specifically towards black women? I'm an abolitionist. I believe in things that if they don't work, you get rid of them and then you create something else after it. So my only answer is to abolish the police. There's lots of different reasons why people want to and don't want to do that. But I do think there'll be a time, maybe my grandkids, where they're like, oh yeah, remember those things that we used to have? So I just want to keep that out there, that when it's reoccurring, where there seems to be no real answer, maybe the only thing left is what comes after police.
Thank you.
I was listening to the story, and it had so many missing parts. I really want to know what happened to the police officer, so I guess that will be another story. Maybe you could let us know. But one thing that came to mind is we have to remember the times that we are in, and particularly we cannot claim any ignorance to the true fact that there are racist police officers. And any opportunity they get to use any type of physical force, they will do it. So my suggestion, respectfully, is act like you know. If the officer makes a reasonable request that's within the law, follow through and obey. Because she obviously got too highly emotional, forgetting what the repercussions could be if she made any type of move not to be put in custody. So legally, she could be deemed partially liable also. That's why cops can always get away with the claim that they had to use some force. And it's usually an issue that most police officers have been able to get over on. So I respectfully suggest to anybody, but in particular black people, realize that racism is really at a very high level now. And it's well known, we can't be dumb about it. National Action Network has been very, very visible about dealing with that reality. And if we are approached by police officers, act like the smart, intelligent people that we are. Because technically speaking, this woman still has a lawsuit against McDonald's for even calling police officers on an issue that wasn't even necessary. But again, they're gonna give us some flack because she didn't cooperate. That's irrelevant as far as I'm concerned, but they will use anything possible to get over. We have to be smarter in this environment of racism that's at a high level. We are intelligent people. We have to apply what we know to protect our own selves, even from police officers. So my prayers is with this woman, but those cops, I hope they get justice, but they seem like they have a way out already. It's unfortunate. Thank you.
Thank you. And just again, the question is, what is the plan of action against this reoccurring issue of police violence against black women and women of color?
Well, I have a plan. And the plan is to have the police department read, study, practice, and master one particular book. It's called Never Split the Difference. It's a book about negotiating. There's a guy who was he used to deal with, what do you call it when you grab people and you take them hostage? He used to deal with hostage people. He was a hostage negotiator. And he learned how to talk hostage negotiators to give back their people without killing them, without fighting them, without getting in trouble. Well, they would get in trouble, but they realized that I should listen to this guy. And because he could tell where they were at, mentally, emotionally, and all of that. And if it took him 10, 12 hours, that's how long it took him to get them to wake up, stop fighting, stop giving us a hard time, and don't kill nobody. And so if we could have that guy come in and talk this to everybody else, the police wouldn't get upset with somebody who got a loud mouth, who's talking all kind of smack in the restaurant. Get out of here. That ain't nothing. Yeah, she's upset, but we get that. We see that all the time. So I would say, let's get the police. Let's talk to maybe Eric Adams and tell him to bring, what do you call it, Never Split the Difference, and bring it to the police department so they can cut that crap out. I'm done.
Thank you.
Hello, thank you. It's my first time here. I appreciate being here with the youth. Yes, thank you. My plan of action would be for us to remember Sandra Bland, because Sandra Bland started mouthing off at the police officers, and she is dead with them saying that she committed suicide. I am so tired of women talking and being disrespectful. Put yourself in the position of the staff. Would you want someone talking to you in a belligerent, loud, and aggressive way? You would not. Trying to get whatever, your receipt, your money back, getting all snapping your neck is not professional and it's not appropriate. If we want to do a real plan of action, learn to self-soothe when you're upset. Stop being overly aggressive. Sandra Bland is dead. She said, ooh, I want to go to court. I can't wait to go to court. And she is dead. She never got to court. And we got her on audio saying, I can't wait. Like she gonna get somebody. She's in the right. Well, I can't do this. Where is she? And they said she committed suicide. Really? Really? Just calm yourself down, okay? It shouldn't even got to the point of the police. It really shouldn't have. But remember yourself as an employee. Remember you see yourself in that person. Would you want to be so disrespectful? Would you want to start throwing stuff down, saying, I got this, I know what I'm going to do? No. That is incorrect. That is inappropriate behavior. Calm yourself down. That's what you need to do.
Thank you.
So let me just say, first off, we need to know the difference between a civilian and a professional. These are people who are tasked with the duty of protecting the public. A civilian does not have, how do I say it? They don't have to walk around as if they're a professional. They're walking around the streets, minding their business. So that's the difference between somebody who is a professional, which is the cop in that equation, versus the civilian who has a right to walk and not have their rights infringed on. So if we're talking about police and putting yourself in their shoes, imagine being a civilian who feels that their rights are being infringed upon. Let that just sink in. It's hard for you as a civilian to sit while somebody is infringing upon your rights. She felt like she had a right. Whatever our opinion is, we were not there. A cop cannot punch somebody in the face because they feel disrespected. That's not the law. They cannot take the law into their own hands. That is not the way that it works. So when we speak about black women and the way that they talk, we have a right to talk how we feel. Like this little young girl right here, my daughter, I let her speak how she feels as long as she's not being disrespectful. Standing up for your rights is not always disrespectful. You have that right as a human being. That's number one. I think I'm done. Go ahead, baby.
So I have a question. Why are you going to be a police officer if your duty is to protect people, and the only thing you're doing is being disrespectful and punching somebody? Just think about that. Think about it.
Thank you. A lot was said. I think it's important when we talk about conflict resolution. You know, everybody, to what the sister said, has a right to express themselves, freely, so long as it's not a danger to others. But I think it's equally important when we talk about conflict resolution that a solution to answer your question, we need to start showing up to these council meetings as a community. Oftentimes we're anticipating that someone else, whether it be an elected organization, a group of people, or someone with a big name or some sort of status, is going to just take on these responsibilities for us and problem solve. But we just got to show up in numbers to these meetings that they're having, because 10-1, hypothetically, let's say something pops off here in Harlem. If 500 people show up to the next 32nd precinct, meeting, the conversation and the agenda of the meeting is going to change immediately. So there is something to be strength in numbers, and I think we need to exercise that more, not just as a community in Harlem, but as a people.
Real quick, I was hoping that a woman got up and said something about, like kind of speaking in reverse of how, women need to calm down to, show poise. I didn't want to come up here until at least a woman spoke about it, because I didn't want to seem like, I was against it. But just from my experience in the street, I noticed and not just when a police officer is dealing one-on-one with a black woman, because another thing about Sandra Bland, she was also, mentally wired, she was mentally off. So the topic of mental health and training these officers how to know and how to deal with a man or woman that's mentally unstable, that should be key. You know what I'm saying? I don't know, they need to take psych classes, they need to take classes, because these mentally disturbed men and women are roaming the streets right now, train stations. There's people cutting people and just living in train, robbing people. You know what I'm saying? These people are mentally disturbed. So before they go into any type of situation, they need to recognize those type of situations, like the situation that happened a few Mondays back with what happened outside. You know what I'm saying? That dude was schizophrenic. He was bugged out. He was off his medication. You know what I'm saying? So, and seeing a kid like that, the officer's first instinct, you can see a difference between an officer who's experienced and knows how to deal with those situations than a rookie who probably was being bullied in high school and probably got the job just because he wanted to flex on people and just take charge, like that. When it comes to people getting involved with the police on the street, I see a lot of women who get involved and get in cops' faces if their boyfriend is wrongfully arrested. You don't violate those boundaries. These are police officers in the neighborhood, and there's crowds around. When they get crowded around, put yourself in the shoes of an officer, just for a second. It don't always have to be us versus the cops. Let's just, play devil's advocate for a minute. You're a police officer, you're a beat walker. You get called to a situation, a man is there, you arrest this man, or you're trying to arrest this man. This man's girlfriend feel like he's done nothing wrong and he shouldn't go in. She's stepping all in the officer's face. This man, another thing, this grown man who has gun, mace, and a nightstick on him, y'all don't need to do that. Y'all need to de-escalate by staying away. He can always go to jail, get arrested, and get out later. Y'all can fight it another way. But when a woman gets into the situation of getting in the officer's face, then you put the whole community in, because that officer may put his hands on that black woman or whatever race of woman. And then the community wants to step in and crowd around. The cops like, yo, what you do that for? Bam, somebody shot. Now somebody in the morgue because somebody got in somebody's face when they should have just waited, call a lawyer. I understand that at the moment, like the sister said, you can speak your mind.
You can speak and say however you feel, especially if you've done wrong. But to violate and cross those boundaries and get in the space of an officer, especially if it's maybe 1 or 2 officers there and they're waiting on get back because of backup because the whole community is in their face, like that gets scary for them. They get shook. They get really, that's why a lot of these things happen, and they're quick to back out and shoot or do something that they shouldn't have done. So on both sides of the spectrum, I believe that, they need to have more minding of knowing when somebody is mentally off or something's off. And at the same time, we as a community need to encourage and tell our women and our men of whatever color, like, don't violate the boundaries. Let that officer do their job. You can deal with it a different way. That's all I need to say.
I wasn't going to share my thoughts, but I am going to share my thoughts. I have witnessed a white woman curse out a police officer. I have witnessed a white woman spit on a police officer, and nothing happened. Say it again? Because she's white. So it doesn't. So there's two justice systems, and that's my point. I have watched a rabbi take a ticket off his car and say and throw it back in the face of police. I've watched people come out and defend that rabbi as if they were going to jump that police officer for even daring to put a ticket on that rabbi's car, even though he was parked illegally. The point that I'm trying to say is there's two justice. They're not there to protect everybody. And we need to be cognizant of that and figure out what is our plan, right, so that we can all be treated the same no matter what zip code you live under. All right, that is all I have, Giselle. Back in the hands, Giselle. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Ron. That was, an exciting Did You Know? Heard a lot of opinions, liked everything I heard. So now I would like to call up Ms. Dominique Sharpton for our last and third Did You Know segment. Clap it up for her, y'all.
All right, so as the hour is late, we're not going to actually watch the film tonight, but we are going to talk about it. So those a little bit about the film itself, and this was by the actual New York Times. They wrote an article on the film when it premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival earlier in 2022. And the New York Times is not always, like the nicest. They really just cut to the chase, but they are one of the most prestigious, if not the most prestigious publication in the country, the New York Times. So the New York Times writes an article about you, that means that you got something going on, for real. So they said that in this sympathetic documentary, Loudmouth, the Reverend Sharpton recounts the time that Coretta Scott King, who's Coretta Scott King, young people? Who's Coretta Scott King, young people? Gino, who's Coretta Scott King? Martin Luther King's what? Daughter? No. No, not mother. Wife, yes, wife, widow. Because she lived longer than him, so she's his widow. She was his widow. But the time that Coretta Scott King actually admonished Reverend Sharpton for his work, and she actually said to Reverend Sharpton personally in a public event at the Keepers of the Dream during the convention that Reverend Sharpton was the one that was carrying forward her husband's legacy. And it was a very, very monumental moment for Coretta Scott King to actually say that about a living civil rights leader. So that was tremendous. But the film, it talks about Reverend Sharpton's activism over the span of, guess what, guys? 40 years. 40 years. So this film in particular talks about his activism over the span of 40 years. So they have footage through archives, and our very own Ashley Sharpton helped with the archives for this film, gathering archives, gathering footage for over 40 years that talked about and showed Reverend Sharpton leading protests and talking about, demonstrations and fighting for legislation from early teenage years, from when he was a teenager. They have footage in the film of him doing activism and doing this work. And so one of the things that I want young people to be aware of is when you're talking about activism and we talk about how passionate we are about issues and how gun violence makes us angry and how education inequality makes us angry and how access to quality healthcare makes us angry and all these things that are happening in our community makes us angry. But what are we going to do about it? How do you use your anger to really accomplish something in the end? And one thing I want to talk about is the word strategy, because that is what is utilized a lot through this film. And this film teaches us a lot about what strategy is in the movement. So you can go on Twitter now, you can go on Facebook, you can go outside in your community and say, I'm angry, I'm upset, this is bothering me and I'm mad. And people will follow you and say, yeah, girl, yeah, man, go ahead, talk about that. What we gonna do? I'm following you. Where we going? What we doing? We pulling up outside? What we doing? And you started a movement. You're an activist, right? So there are so many activists now that we are seeing all over the world, like activists that are leading protests, demonstrations that have huge platforms of people following them and listening to what they're saying. But the end goal is the strategy. What are they trying to accomplish with their anger? Where's their anger channeling them? Are you trying to accomplish something in particular that's going to change what's happening to you currently? So let's say you failed a test in school and you upset about it and you felt that the teacher gave you the incorrect grade. And you want everybody in the school to get behind you and say, look, what's your name, Diamond? Diamond got this bad grade, and it's not fair. And we're all going to rally behind her because Diamond got an incorrect grade, and we're going to protest until you change that grade. None of us is going to class until you change that grade. We're not going to class. We're not listening to this teacher. We're not doing nothing. We're going to sit out in this lunchroom until Diamond's grade is changed. Okay, you have an issue. Diamond got a bad grade. We're all angry about this issue. We're all on one accord that we're mad about this issue. Okay? The strategy is that we're going to protest, not go to class, not do this, not do that, in order to accomplish something. The accomplishment is that your grade is going to change. Once your grade changes, then we have won, and now we have won the race, right? And we are victorious over the challenge. So I want y'all to understand the strategy component is what is most important in order to achieve the goal you want to achieve in activism. Everybody understand that? So the strategy that Reverend Sharpton used, he's in New York City, he's competing with all the big lights. You got Broadway lights, you got the Nation of Islam, you got the radicals, you got all of these different groups. Everybody is out there talking, being seen. You got Broadway. New York is just amazing and huge. Lots of people, right? How are you going to be seen? He utilized his look. So he had this particular look. Well, I'm going to wear these track suits. I'm going to wear my hair like this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that so people will notice me, right? Because that's the first thing. People need to notice me. And then I'm going to have my voice, right? I'm going to be loud. I'm going to do things that no one's ever done before. His strategy was, pay attention to me, I have something to say, right? So he utilized, his strategy was, well, I'm going to get everybody, not just black people, I'm going to get people that can actually change what's going on around us. And in that time, people of power did not look like us, they were white. How am I going to get their attention? I'm going to make them uncomfortable. I'm going to stand in the way. I'm going to make sure they can't get on a train. I'm going to make sure they can't get to work on time. I'm going to make sure they can't get home to their families. I'm going to block the traffic. He did things that were literally outrageous, okay, in order to make sure that people were now paying attention to, okay, well, why is he sitting in the street? Why is this man holding up the subway with all these people? I can't get home. I'm uncomfortable. Now I need to pay attention to what is this man saying, because obviously he wants attention. So what is he saying? Oh, they killing black folks? Well, yeah, I knew that, but I didn't know that y'all cared about that so much. So now you have people tapping in. What they're doing now, and the movement is growing and growing and growing and growing and growing. Meanwhile, on the other end, you have the media that's portraying and showing y'all in the news and showing y'all in the newspaper and showing y'all, I don't think they had internet back then, but showing y'all everywhere what this man and what these movement, what these people are talking about. Now they're showing it, but they're not always showing you in a positive light. So what they do is the media is saying, hey, you got this big man with this tracksuit and this perm making noise, and all these black people are upset that this man, this black boy got killed by this white angry mob. And we know that it's wrong. We all know that that's wrong, but that's just the way that things are, right? And so in order to make people forget or make people think, away from, not pay attention to what Reverend Sharpton is saying, the media has to spin it. They have to spin it. So they're going to get out there and they're going to try to act like he's a con man. They're going to get out there and put out he's a snitch. They're going to get out there and put out all these bad things to make you feel that what this man is saying, I can't trust him. That's what the media was doing. And so this film, Loudmouth, shows you chronologically how all of that stuff played out. The media, the cases, the incidents, the issues, what was happening. You see racism, like literally racism. People, they were leading marches, and white people were literally on the sidelines screaming the N-word to them, telling them to go home, throwing watermelons at them. All kinds of stuff was happening, and you see that in this film. So I wanted to just talk a little bit about it and talk to y'all about what to look for, because this film teaches us a lot about activism. We can apply it to what we do in our work today in terms of activism, because it talks a lot about strategy and it deals with that. And I wanted to lend the floor just a few moments to, as Ashley mentioned earlier, we have some loudmouths in the room, some OG loudmouths, we call them, in the room. But those who also understood the importance of speaking out and advocating and being seen to make change. And one of them is in the room tonight. We call her our Reverend Mother, but Reverend Mother Magora Kennedy is in the room tonight. And she's iconic for so many reasons, but she was also with Reverend Sharpton on a lot of these things that you see in this film and this documentary, Loudmouth. Mother Kennedy was there on a lot of accords. And I just wanted to lend the mic to her to come and talk a little bit about why she got involved in National Action Network. Why did you feel like it was important? And even at a time when Reverend Sharpton was very controversial, you can turn on the TV and they were always saying something negative about him. Look at him out there doing this. Look at him out there. He's a con man. He's shaking people down. He's doing all of this. But people like you stood with him. And I want you to talk about that experience a little bit and teach these young people, because, we know when we get out there, it hurts our feelings when people don't like us, right? It hurts our feelings to have people say bad things about us. That don't feel good. I know it don't feel good to me. Y'all can say stuff about me all the time. But it doesn't feel good at the end, And so there were people, I'm sure, that did not like some of the things that was going on. I felt like they were endangered, to even go out and be with Reverend Sharpton and march with him and do this. But there was a cause that was way more important than all of us. And I just wanted you to come to talk a little bit about your experience getting involved in NAN and why you felt it was very important. Please give it up to Reverend Mother Magora Kennedy.
Thank you. Catch me with a mouthful of pizza. One of the things that was most, and back in the day, was the thing that it took courage. That was the one thing. And this was something that Reverend Sharpton always had. He had the courage and also not the fear. You see, when you stand up against authority, you better be ready for whatever is going to come along with that. Reverend Sharpton, as I always said, stood flat-footed and firm, and the people that gathered around him were ready to do whatever it took to bring about justice. What you see today and what happened like back in the day. I'm going to talk about the things that happened, but how I met Reverend Sharpton was through a DJ. And the thing that really was interesting was this DJ was always talking about who Reverend Sharpton was, what he was doing, and I was like very, very, very interested, because this sounded like something that I knew about but had not really paid attention to. coming from upstate New York, I was born in Albany and raised up in Saratoga Springs. But I left home early because I was like curious, because I was very, very concerned about what was happening with our people. And there was Loudmouth from Brooklyn and going around, you know, the state of New York and letting people know he did not have any fear. Because if he had any kind of fear, we wouldn't have shut down the subways, shut down the highways, shut down this, because calling attention was important. And of course, there was always the people that had the positive things to say about Reverend Sharpton and the negative things to say. And when they were starting to talk about negative, I said, look, I would tell people in a New York minute, that's my son. You know, so they didn't know if it was harm or not. But anyway, that's my son you talking about. And it was kind of quiet for a minute. But, you know, they would keep on. And it was all right. Because the more that they kept on trying to stop us, the more Reverend Sharpton was determined that he was going to be heard, going to be seen, and there definitely was going to be a change that was going to take out over the years. When Dominic and Ashley were babies, and we would go on the demonstrations, and we'd be marching with Reverend Sharpton, no matter what it took. Like a lot of times the rally would come, and they'd have the rally, and y'all was babies then. And they would have the rally, and then afterwards say, we're taking it to the streets. So the rally would end, and sure enough, out in the streets we would go. And it would be okay. And of course, one thing I can say, you know, seeing them since they were babies, Dominique was always the one. She was always up front and with her mother. Ashley was a little bit, you know, she was there, but like she was slow. So I pick up Ashley and put her across my hip, and we would keep on marching. We were in the school, and we were still over at the school. We was over at the school on 134th Street, and it was on the stage. And this particular Saturday, I remember, like, because I was saying, I want them to have black dolls. And I brought the black dolls, you know, and, like, I remember, like, Dominic looking at me and looking at the doll, you know, and I was looking at Kathy, and I was like, Lord, did I do something wrong here? No. But they took the dolls, and the thing, and that particular Saturday, I think there had been, listen, honey, I'm 84 years old, and like it's like a lot of times, you know, sometimes I have to write down my name. But anyway, it was a demonstration that was going to take place like after the rally, and we had left the school, and we had taken it to the streets, and we were on our way upstate, because we were going upstate, and the plan was to like really go from the rally to Albany. That was the plan, you know, and everybody that was ready to go and march, well, we did. We left here, we left Harlem, we went through the Bronx, we got up by Grace Methodist Church on our way up White Plains Road, going on our way to Albany. The media covered it like Reverend Sharpton was committing a crime, you know, because he was talking about what was going to happen at Albany at the legislature. And then also the thing that back in the day that we did, Dominic and Ashley, was Reverend Sharpton held classes for those of us that were in the beginning of the movement. And the idea was to be able to face these people and not be afraid. And his whole thing was you learn about who is your enemies. In other words, you keep your friends close and you keep your enemies closer because you got to watch and see what they are doing. Reverend Sharpton never backed up and never backed down. So the whole thing was we used to have these meetings where we'd have to meet Reverend Sharpton at 7 a.m. in the morning in Brooklyn. And that was before really like National Action Network really got started, because we were in Brooklyn first. And then we came to Harlem, and then we came into Manhattan. In those days, Reverend Sharpton told everybody, be at the meeting and be at the office at 7 a.m. The strategy was, tell everybody to be there at 7. He knew they'd be there by 8. So the whole thing was planning, meeting, and doing exactly what he said he was going to do. And back in those days, oh yeah, there were a lot of people. You always hear them talk about, the revolutionaries, they up, they talking Ungawa, all black power and all like this, me too, And so, but the thing was, who was going to stay to the end? As the saying goes, the race is not given to the swift. The race is given to those who is going to endure until the end. And so here we are, 30 some odd years later, National Action Network, and Reverend Sharpton is still doing what he said he was going to do. We didn't just get up and start with this. Reverend Sharpton had this from the time he was in the church. But then leading him out outside the church and what was going to happen and how it was going to impact your life, because y'all the future, and how it's going to affect your life, because we still around, y'all youngins, and like we always say, yes, us seniors, we're around, we started it, but y'all youngins got to keep it on. You got to keep this legacy going. The thing that Reverend Sharpton was very, very adamant about was that if you can't, in other words, I always say, if you can't stand the heat, get the hell out the kitchen. Okay, Reverend Sharpton was very, very adamant about how we was going to do this, where we were going, and whoever needed help could come to National Action Network. Well, now, one particular story that I really like is that when it was known that Harlem was going to be gentrified, Reverend Sharpton went places. He went to these churches. He went and tried to talk to these people and tell them Harlem was going to be gentrified. And of course, you had the back and forth and whatnot. And nobody in these churches, and I'm here to tell you the story, those very same people that you see coming through the doors now and doing those things, back in those days, they didn't want to hear it. The only one that listened to him, and I'm here to tell you the story, the only one that listened to him when he was talking about the gentrification of Harlem was Reverend Calvin Butts. He went through the neighborhood, he bought places, he got people that were like first renting and then got them to buy their brownstones. He built Pathmark on the corner of 5th Avenue and on 125th Street. And this was from advice and things that he was getting from Reverend Sharpton. The media tried to make, that whole divide and conquer thing about, oh, well, Reverend Sharpton, Reverend Butts ain't listens to him and all this kind of stuff and all these different churches talking. But in the end, when it all went down, who could they turn to? It's just like Ghostbusters. Who do they call? And who did they call? And who do they still call? Okay, say his name. Who? Who? All right, because without him, a lot of things that are happening today would not be. And I am so glad that when I met him, I asked if I could come, because I did. I asked if I could come to National Action Network, because at that time, we were still in Greenwich Village, and we were fighting against the police, because we had police brutality in those days in the gay community. And I just asked him, could I come, And so he said, everybody is welcome. And he's proven that over the years, because as one of the founding members of National Action Network, I was one of the first openly gay people in this organization. And the whole thing was, we stood behind him, everything we had to do, whatever he told us to do, that's what we did. And to this day, if you listen, you'll never go wrong. If you stand firm, you will win the victory. And he has shown over the years, you see these pictures around this place, that doesn't begin to half tell the story of where this man with a vision and a visionary and a revolutionary is here today and where we go in the future.
Thank you so much. And I remember, I think the year was, you're going to tell it, maybe 1991? Anyway, my dad was leading a protest in Bensonhurst. A young black man, Yusef Hawkins, had been killed by an angry white mob just for being in the wrong neighborhood at the wrong time, being the wrong color. Literally, that was what he did. And he was killed, literally. Reverend Sharpton started leading a series of protests in this neighborhood, this white, angry, racist neighborhood of Bensonhurst, and said that he was going to bring all the black people he knew in town, to Bensonhurst, as many days as it took for them to mob those streets and protest until those people who killed this young black man was arrested. No arrests have been made. No arrests have been made. They was getting away with it. Killed this young man, and it was like they got off, like nothing happened. Reverend Sharpton led these protests, and at one of the protests, he was stabbed in his chest, and he almost died, literally. When I was younger, we were younger, Ashley and I, my parents forbade us, our babysitter, to let us watch TV after a certain time. We couldn't read magazines. We couldn't do any of that because my dad at the time was very controversial, and they were always writing something negative about him or saying something negative. And my parents did not want us to start looking at our father in the eyes that the media was portraying him. And so we had to turn off the TV at a certain time. We were very structured and sheltered, I guess you would say, to shield us from seeing and hearing and knowing what the media at the time, who was talking about him a lot, was saying about him. And on this one particular day, there was a Jet magazine that was delivered to our house. Y'all don't know about Jet, but I remember Jet. I'm old enough to remember Jet. Some of y'all remember the Jet. There was a Jet magazine that was delivered to our home, and Curious George Dominique looked through the magazine when my babysitter wasn't looking, and I saw a photo of my father getting stabbed in the chest. Literally. Jet had written about it. Jet was black, but they wrote about it. And I immediately had an asthma attack. I had asthma really bad when I was young, so I had an asthma attack and had to be in the hospital. And so my mom literally had to go from dealing with my dad being in the hospital, being stabbed, running all across town to deal with me being in the hospital, having an asthma attack because I saw dad getting stabbed in a magazine. And so I say all that to say, from a very early age, from a very young age, Ashley and I literally, had to deal with and live with the fact that at any given moment, our father could be taken away from us at any given time, and we had to be prepared for that emotionally. What would that mean for us? And I was one who literally couldn't handle it. I would have breakdowns at protests. If I saw somebody getting too close to my dad, I would have panic attacks. It was crazy. Ashley was the stronger one, trust me. But I was a little more on the emotional side. But I say all that to say, and we talk about this a lot in Sharpton Sisters, make sure you watch it, because we talk about some of our stories growing up, being Sharpton's daughters. But I say all that to say that even being stabbed, even the fact that he was about to lose his life, that man still marched. He was still out there marching. He had a bandage over his chest, and he was out there the next week marching, literally. Because he believed that if he kept doing it, and he kept doing it, and he stayed consistent, and he kept at it, and he kept at it, and he kept at it, eventually something had to change. Eventually something had to change. And so I say all that to say, young people, if y'all are passionate about something, it's something that you want to do, something that you feel in, just stick with it. You may not get it right now. It may not make sense to you. You may not, be favorable towards it. You may not feel like you have it all together. But just stick with it. If you have that desire to do something, stick with it. Stick with it, because eventually you'll get it. And eventually it will happen. So please, watch the film. And I will say that on today, 20 years ago, I thank you, Derek Perkinson, for reminding us of that fact. 20 years ago today, there was a fire at the old House of Justice. The old House of Justice was located at 1941 Madison Avenue. It was between 124th and 125th Street. And 20 years ago today, that building burned down. The first House of Justice burned down. The only thing left in that building was this fist. The fist is in my dad's office in the back. But it just speaks to the volume of where we were supposed to go, that even though the building burned down, the movement and what we did in that building continued to live. So where 20 years later, we not only have a new House of Justice, but National Action Network is now international. Okay? What do you mean it's international? Well, on February the 5th, which is next weekend, Reverend Sharpton is traveling to London, England, where they're going to open the National Action Network in London, England, on next Monday, February the 5th. JT will be there. I won't be there. JT will be there with him. But they'll be opening up a National Action Network House of Justice in London, England. So it just goes to show you that if you believe in something, like Mother Kennedy said, if you stay with it, if you stay consistent, if you have a vision, it don't matter who likes you, it doesn't matter who's behind you, it doesn't matter who supports you. If you got one person, Reverend Sharpton was out there. If it was just him and my mom, they were out there. Whoever joined, they joined. If they didn't join, they were still out there. But that's all you need is a vision. And you have a vision, let it drive you, let it move you, let it encourage you to just go forward and do it, because you can do it and you can make it happen. All right? To all the future loudmouths, love you all. And I hope that you watch the film, and I hope that you like it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Damo. So I will be closing it out. Everybody enjoy their pizza, I see. Have a nice day, everybody. Thank you for coming. See y'all next Monday for the next huddle.